But I'm really excited to have you guys here, and welcome and thank you for joining us. I know we have about half of our attendees here, but everybody's time is super valuable. So we'll just go ahead and get started. So I am Sunshine. For those of you who haven't already met me, I know a lot of you already have met me and know me well, and Casey here as well, I think has spoken to most of you. And so it's really good to have an opportunity to say hi to you guys and see you live and talk to you about something I think is really important. The compensation part of surrogacy is a huge aspect, and I think it's something that's really important to plan for. I didn't have a good plan for my first surrogacy compensation, and so I ended up having a lot of regrets and wondering, where the heck did that money even go? Like, I had this extra money and then it seems to disappear. So I made the effort to make a plan for my second and third, and Warren helped me a ton with that. I love having him as a resource. I call him every time I'm like, should I invest in this or that? Or, you know, what should I do? Is all my money working? Is it where it should be? Is it making as much interest as it could be? You know, and just having that resource is awesome. So I wanted to share that with you guys. And Casey, do you want to say hello to everyone? And then we can hand it over to Warren and let him introduce himself.
Yes. Hi, ladies. So excited to be doing another really great webinar. I've just recently met Warren and had the opportunity to speak with him a handful of times now, and he seems like he knows what he's doing, which I'm really excited about. And Sunshine has raved about him, so I'm excited to see if you guys are able to get anything from that. Kind of like Sunshine shared, doing two journeys. I realized in the very beginning, you have all these desires and things that you're hoping for the journey that you're going to use and put towards for that money, the income that you're going to receive for surrogacy as like a side bonus, right? And unfortunately, kind of same thing. You know, you do be able, I was successful in doing a few things that I wanted to do, but I would have loved to have somebody like Warren on my side to figure out what those next steps could have been, and as far as investing goes. So we're super excited to have him and to share his wisdom and knowledge in this industry. And feel free to ask as many questions as you can, because he's a really great resource that we have at our fingertips at the moment. So excited. Thank you, ladies, for joining, and I will hand it over.
And Rachel too. Sorry, Rachel is Warren's assistant too. So you guys go ahead and introduce yourself and take it over.
You got it. My name is Warren Duthie, and I've had 2 cups of coffee since noon, so I'm super jacked up for this webinar. I hope you are too. I run a financial planning practice here in San Diego, and we've been in business for 18 years, and we serve about 300 households around the country. Most of them are here in California. We do comprehensive financial planning, helping our clients save and invest money, protect their families, and act as like a thinking partner when they're planning for the future. I've been married to my wife, Courtney, for 10 years in a row. We have 4 kids, a cat, and a dog, one of which may be making an appearance on today's show. Rachel, my friend, and my colleague for over 8 years. Bring them up to speed, give them a little background on who you are, Rach.
Thanks, Warren. Yeah, my name is Rachel, and like Warren mentioned, I've been working with him for about 8 years now, and I actually spent the first 2 years working as his nanny, which was a lot of fun. I was born and raised here in San Diego, and I currently live with my sister. Together, we're raising her 6-year-old daughter, and I also adopted my cousin a few years ago, teenage cousin, so that's a lot of fun. My sister's actually also a surrogate, and so I'm just really grateful to be here with you guys today. And it's been a really cool journey to walk with her so far, and excited to see what the next few months bring as well. If you're on this call today or on this webinar today, it's because you've made the decision to give one of the greatest gifts that you could possibly give to a family. And yeah, it's mutually beneficial. Like, not only are you going to receive the satisfaction and joy of, you know, getting to give this gift, but you're also getting a chunk of money. And our goal over the next 30 minutes or so is just to hopefully help equip you guys with some tools to make thoughtful decisions about how you spend this money. So we split today up into like 3 little sections. We're going to talk about wish lists and then a little bit about warnings, and then we'll wrap it up with some like winning scenarios that we would consider successes.
I don't know if you got the theme there, www, just like the World Wide Web. We wanted to use that so that it's easy to remember later. Okay, 40 weeks, ladies, 40 weeks. When I say that, you know what I'm talking about. We have a long time to think about what we're going to do with approximately $40,000. If you think about elephants, they have 95 weeks. They don't make any mistakes. They have so much time before they give birth. They just have like the best financial lives ever. But we are not elephants. So whether or not you have any plans for the money in concrete, you've probably started to contemplate a wish list. And we're going to start with our first poll question. And by the way, this is all anonymous, so be honest. What are your plans for this money already? So like, what's on the wish list already? Buy a car, pay off a car, save, invest the money, student loans, debt pay down, home purchase. What? Fill out that poll. And we're curious to see what you're thinking of doing. What's on the wish list? Seeing the results come in. Rachel, any noteworthy statistics?
Yeah, we're seeing a good amount of saving and some down payments on a house.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Is there anything that hasn't been selected?
Nobody's planning on getting a $300,000 haircut, Warren.
What?
I know.
Maybe that's because they don't think that a $300,000 haircut actually exists, which they will be surprised by what we're about to share. So there is an individual named Warren Buffett. Okay, you may have heard of the guy. He looks like that. Oh, whoops. He looks like that. And that is not his $300,000 haircut. You might think like that dude got ripped off, because I could do that myself. Okay, so he's like the most famous investor and probably the most successful investor alive. And he just turned 90 years old last August, and for his birthday, this article was published in the Wall Street Journal. Warren Buffett and the $300,000 haircut. When I saw that title, I had to read more. So this article gives us a window into the way this dude thinks. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I'm going to highlight a couple of things. So one, around the age of 10, he read this book about how to make $1,000. And the big thing that stood out to him from this book was the importance of time. So in 5 years, $1,000 that he invested, if it grew by 10% a year, would be worth $1,600 at the end of 5 years. 10 years, same growth rate, 10% compounded growth rate a year, 1,000 turns into 2,600. Give it more time, 25 years, it's 10,800. And 50 years, that $1,000 grew into be 117,000 and change. And he was like, whoa, that's where the money is. It's the time. The way that the numbers exploded is how you could turn a small sum into a fortune. And so if we go further down in the article, you can see here, as a teenager, he started to think about time differently. So it became like a reflex for the guy. And what he did is he would, in his mind, marry the future with the present. So like, for example, if $1 today was going to grow up to be $10 in the future, let's say he was going to go buy a pack of gum for $1. Well, to him, it wasn't $1, it was 10. He bought a $10 pack of gum, not a $1 pack of gum. And one example that he's kind of famous for saying is his house that he bought in Omaha, Nebraska in his late 20s was $31,500. And he calls it Buffett's folly, or his big mistake, because in his mind, $31,500 could have grown up to be millions of dollars in the future. So money spent today is worth a lot in the future. And his friends would hear him say, he like started to kind of joke around. It was like his financial dad joke, if you will. And he's like, do I really want to spend $300,000 on this haircut? And people would be like, what the heck are you talking about? Or I'm not sure I want to blow $500,000 on this car. But to him, that's what he was spending. And so this paragraph here is my favorite. So recognizing that every dollar you spend today is 10 or 100 or 1,000 in the future that you won't have is huge. And it teaches you to acknowledge the importance of measuring trade-offs. That's what we're talking about here on that wish list, is trade-offs. So always weigh the need or the desire that today's spending fulfills against, so today's spending, what is that fulfilling? Weighing that against what you could accomplish with that money after letting it cook and grow for years or even decades into the future. Those are the trade-offs that we're talking about on that wish list.
You should tell them about Chris and Pat too.
Really? You think I should disclose their, okay. So we have these friends, Chris and Pat, okay? Chris and Pat are the exact same age. They're both 65 years old today, but they've been friends for a long time. And way back when they were 31 years old or 31 years young, they had a little bet. Chris said, hey, Pat, I've got this game plan. I'm going to save $20,000 every year for the next 10 years. I'm going to stop saving when I turn 41. And I'm going to invest that money, and that money is going to grow by 8% a year. And Chris says, Pat, you want to do the same thing? And Pat's like, no, Chris, because, and Chris is like, well, why not? And Pat's like, because I love to party. And I'm going to party for that. When you're saving, I'm going to be partying. And my budget for partying every year for the next decade is $20,000 a year. But then I'm going to get it out of my system. And then when I'm 41, I'm going to start saving that $20,000 a year. But you know how you stopped after 10 years? I ain't stopping, dude. I'm going to save $20,000 a year from 41 all the way to 65. You save for 10 years, I'm saving for 25 years. You save $200,000, I'm saving $500,000. And why don't we make a deal that whoever has more money at the end, the loser has to buy fish tacos for the winner. And so they made this bet. And here you can see the results of the bet. So here we have Chris on the left-hand side, 31 years young, saving $20,000 a year, all the way through 40. And at 41, you can see Chris stops. One thing to note, Chris has 300 grand and change in Chris's account. Pat, you can see the results of the party fund on the right-hand side, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Great memories though, Pat. Okay, Pat's gonna start saving, but is already down $300,000. And guess what? Pat owes Chris some fish tacos because as you can see here at 65, Chris put 200 grand in and has $2.1 million. Pat put 500 grand in and only has $1.5 million. So again, the trade-offs here for Chris and Pat was to party or not to party, to save or not to save. And so I want you to be looking through these lenses when you're looking at that wish list.
Yeah, you saw it with Warren Buffett, the most famous investor alive, and you're seeing it now with Chris and Pat also. So think back on that list, and now that you've learned a little bit about compounding interest and the time value of money, you know, that $20,000 car that you're thinking of paying off or buying, it's actually like a $500,000 car. And, you know, some of those trade-offs are going to be worth it, absolutely. And some of them might not be as worth it. And so we're going to spend some time talking about the math behind, you know, what trade-offs are worth it and which ones aren't. But in general, take what you've learned about compounding interest and try to hold on to that as we get into some of the nitty-gritty details of these. And keeping in mind, obviously, we don't have the time to get into everybody's specific situation or the details. we'd love to do that with you guys during maybe a one-on-one session, but we're going to try to cover some like broader concepts that we think might be applicable to most of your situations and just talk about some math there.
That's right. And the coffee is still pulsing through my veins. So I'm sorry if stay with me. And this is going to be important. Okay, hypothetical example. Let's say you have $20,000 and you have $20,000 of student loan debt and you want to squash it, okay? So let's talk about a trade-off. You could take the $20,000 cash and squash the loans and be done with your payments. By the way, just ran some math here. The loans, if you had like a 15-year payment plan for your loans at 4%, that payment is going to be $1,798 a year, which is about $150 a month. Okay, so if you paid this $20,000 off, you just freed up $150 a month, or $1,798. All right, so let's look at the math. So this math, can they see that?
Should be able to.
No, it looks like I'm sharing. Yeah, they need to see this. There we go. Okay, so on one hand, you could invest that $20,000, and let's assume that it grows by 10% a year. And on the other hand, you could squash the debt. Let's cover the invest the money first. So think through me here. Stop looking at the numbers for a second and just hear me out. In this scenario, we're going to take $20,000 and we're going to invest it. That's going to grow every year by 10%. And then when you're all done paying your student loans, the $150 a month is over after year 15 when you're 44, then you're going to resume your payments. But instead of paying something, you're going to be saving and investing that something. So I'm putting that $1,798 into this same account. Okay, and check this out. You're 30 years old in this example. You put in $20,000 in year one, and then in year 15, we're saving our $150 a month. Guess what? That grows up to $923,000 in the future. And you only put in 63. That's cool. What if you didn't do this? And you said, hey, Warren, I hate debt, and I'm going to squash that student loan at 4%. And I'm going to free up $150 a month. I'm going to save that starting right now. We have that scenario too. So here we have our $1,798 right at the get-go from when you're 30 years old. And let's fast forward, shall we? You're 67 years old. You have $720,000. What did you have before? $923. So that's between all of us here on this webinar, let's call it $200,000. So paying off that student loan was a $200,000 mistake. That's what I'm talking about when evaluating trade-offs. Or even worse would be like paying off a car, because like it's probably not the last car you're going to buy, right? Like it's like we got to be careful, and you're probably already used to making those payments. You're going to do it. I think that another big assumption here is what, Rach?
That you would actually, open that investment account and start saving that money. And I actually had the same conversation with my sister, who, as I mentioned earlier, is also a surrogate. Her instinct was, I'm going to pay off my car. And I went through this math with her and told her, I don't know if that's a great idea. You're already used to making this monthly payment. It's not bad debt. And so hopefully you guys, this is resonating with some of you guys, because this is real money. This is a real $200,000 that could be the difference in your account,
Yeah. And I think that along those same lines, let's say you didn't have $20,000 of like at 4% interest. Let's say you had $20,000 on a credit card. I'm not trying to say don't pay that off. I think anybody in their right mind would say you have to squash that, because think about it. If you had $20,000 of credit card debt, and let's say that interest rate wasn't 4%, but it was like 25%. Well, that's $5,000 a year in interest. You're not even making a dent in the 20,000. You're just treading water. So Imagine if you took that 20K and you put out the fire that was the credit card debt. I remember that meme that was like me making the minimum payment on my credit card debt, and it was like a squirt gun and there's just blazing fire. So this fire's out now. We just squashed it. What did that just free up? Well, remember I was saying you were paying $5,000 a year in interest? What if you redirected that $5,000 and you started putting it into a Roth IRA, which you can do, by the way, we would love to help you do that. Look at this. Okay, here's what we're looking at. Same exact scenario, except now we're putting $5,000 a year in, okay, at 30 years old. And let's just say that because you had an awesome coach like Rachel and I, you stuck with the plan and you saved your $5,000 a year every single year until you hit the Social Security normal retirement age, which is 67. You saved $190,000. Good for you. And look, it's $2 million that's in your account. Okay, close your eyes. I'm not starting until everyone has them closed. Okay, thank you. You're 67 years old. You have $2 million in your Roth IRA, which isn't taxable, by the way. We'll talk about that some other time. How good does that feel? And how much better is it than making the minimum payment on your credit card? Like, so much better. You're going to be so proud of yourself that you did this.
Yeah, so there are some trade-offs. Thinking about paying off student loans or paying off your car versus paying off high interest debt. There's some math involved in making that trade-off decision. And instead of doing what the heart wants to do, like we mentioned, you have $20,000, $30,000 that you're getting, you have this loan, you're going to want to just pay it off. But you know, stop, think about it a little bit more, and continue to chew on the math that we just went over. And that's kind of leads us into our next section, which we're going to go over a couple warnings. So the first one would, you know, be considering those trade-offs. And yeah, thinking back on the wish list, there's probably some things on there that are not necessarily smart financial decisions.
Hey, let's be honest. There's some things on that wish list that weren't great financial decisions, huh? I know, I've made plenty too. That's a different webinar. Okay, if we're being honest with ourselves, we also know that the algorithms from social media advertisers are working nonstop. And they have been collecting our precious data for decades, and they're going to use it. They know what we like, and they're going to be putting it in front of us, and they want to get any or all of that $40,000. And if we're not vigilant, sorry, coffee does make me go a little fast sometimes. If we're not vigilant, then they're going to get it. And guess what? There's no algorithms to sell you great long-term, goal-focused financial planning decisions. We have to break through here. I have to drink a bunch of coffee. We're going to do this though, ladies. Okay, close your eyes again. Probably not the last time we're going to do this, but hear me on this warning. You squashed the $20,000 of credit card debt, which, by the way, it probably didn't get that way by making a bunch of good financial decisions. I've had $20,000 of credit card debt before, and I didn't get there by making good financial decisions. And let's say we squashed it. And, but here we are 3 years later because we got stuck in a trap, a pattern of making bad financial decisions that, by the way, are like as American as apple pie. And now you're 33 and you're right back to 20K of credit card debt again. That, number one, ask yourself, and let's be serious for a moment, that ignoring that trap, that pattern, that cycle isn't gonna change anything. Is there a cycle that you're afraid of falling back in, or a trap that you're afraid of falling back in? Because like, I can sit here until I'm blue in the face and drink gallons of coffee and telling you all the smart places to put your money, but when this webinar is over, I can't stop you from buying something that you shouldn't. And I can't protect you from human nature and getting stuck in that, pattern of bad financial decisions. And so I want you to make this count, because I know that when you check your social media accounts, guess who's going to work? The algorithms are going to work, and we got to have a good defense here and make some good decisions, because human nature ain't going away. And human nature is a failed saver and a failed investor. And that's why we need a partner to hold us accountable, which, by the way, that's my greatest value add as an advisor, is to hold my clients accountable to following these plans. Also, hey, I'll cover that. I'll cover that at the end.
Okay. So we're gonna do another poll. This one's a little quicker. So do you currently have a date-specific, goal-specific, written down plan? Let me send this poll out. That you review annually. So again, answer honestly. This is totally anonymous.
Is it written down? And do you review it regularly?
Answers are coming in. And you can probably guess what they're heavily weighted towards.
What did the survey say?
We got a lot of no's.
A lot of no's. Okay, so there is an interesting study that I would like to share with you. And here we go. So the study is, hold on, Chris and Pat. This is another headline that I was instantly drawn to. So why do 3% of Harvard MBAs make 10 times as much as the other 97 combined? The answer is simple. So there's this study that was in 1979, and they interviewed a bunch of Harvard MBA graduates. These are people that went through the Harvard Business School, which is not an easy thing to get into. And they asked them a simple question. Hey, do you have set, clear, written goals for your future? And have you made a plan to accomplish them? Two-part question. 84%, no specific goals. Okay, so all the no's out there, you're in good company, because all these people that went to Harvard, same deal. 13% had goals, but they were not written. 3% had both. They had written goals and a plan on how to get from A to B, on how to accomplish the goal, okay? Now it's 1989. And the idea here is they ask those same people what their income is. And so the 13% that had goals that were written, no plan though, they were making twice as much on average income as the 84% that had no goals, okay? And the crazy thing is the 3% that had both, that had written goals and a plan on how to get there, were making on average 10 times as much as the 97% combined. So ladies, hello, what is the moral of this story? It's that having written goals and a plan on how to accomplish them actually works. That's crazy.
Yeah. And even attending this webinar is something to celebrate. It's a great first step. It's a fact, it shows, it's an indicator that you have the desire to do the right thing, that you want to make thoughtful decisions with how you spend this money. And that's a really great first step. So we're going to talk about what maybe some successful or winning outcomes might be. So we went over paying off low interest loans versus investing that money now. And we learned that investing that money now mathematically makes more sense, and just working hard and continuing to make those payments is a smart move. We also talked about squashing high interest debt. Not all debt is bad, but some debt is bad and should be squashed for sure.
But don't just stop there. What are we going to do with those payments?
We're going to invest those payments. You're already used to paying it. It's time to save that money instead. And here's some other winning strategies. One, if you don't open a Roth IRA, which we touched on a little bit, you should open a Roth IRA. That should be step number one.
Mm-hmm. Yes. How about number two? You should max it out. Right now, you can put $6,000 a year into that Roth IRA. Fun fact, I'm going to pull this back up. Remember, we don't have a poll question for this, but does anybody remember how much money the $5,000 scenario had with their the $5,000 savings scenario? I will tell you, they had $2 million. Remember the 30-year-old? She had $2 million after saving $5,000 a year. This lady was the one who paid off her $20,000 of credit card debt. And then instead of making minimum payments with $5,000, she put that money in a Roth IRA. And now at 67, she has $2 million. What if she took it one step further and she maxed out the Roth? So she put in $6,000. Let's have a look. Rach, how much do you think is going to be in there at 67?
2.4 million.
Oh man, that's because we practiced this beforehand. Nailed it. 2.4 million. That extra $1,000 a year was worth $400,000. That's crazy. All right, so that's one extra tip. Hey, let's get on a plan of maxing out the Roth. And but here's another, I guess, way to win that we haven't really talked about, and this is maybe a separate webinar or a separate conversation, but saving the money is a huge win, and I want to applaud you for that. But if you just kept that money in the bank, that's like I think a big mistake, because if this lady who we were just looking at, she saved $6,000 a year for 38 years, and she saved a total of $228,000. But she doesn't get that 2.4 million bucks unless that money is invested. It's got to be invested. And historically, for example, if you think about the S&P 500, which I get a little choked up when I start thinking about the S&P 500. Oh, that's actually the coffee trying to come up because I'm super excited. But all right, the S&P 500, top 500 companies in the United States, the growth rate, if we go back 95 years to 1926, those companies have grown at a pace in value of 10% per year. So the cool part about that is you get to own all these companies, but you don't have to hire and fire people and write reports or whatever. You don't have to run the day-to-day stuff on those companies, but you do get to participate in all of their prosperity, which is pretty sweet. So let's tag along for the ride for what those companies do. So, okay, in closing, let's reevaluate that wish list and calculate the trade-offs and make sure we're making a really good decision. What's the fulfillment today versus what we could do with that money, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what that money is going to accomplish. I guess one other thing I said I was going to talk about later, this isn't a summary, but some people said that they would want to take this money and put it in their kids' college account, which is super noble, right? You're going to educate your children. But I guess before you do that, before you marry those dollars to college education, ask yourself and make sure you know how you're tracking for retirement, because there's a lot of ways to pay for college. You can go to community college and then transfer to a state school, or you take out student loans, you get grants or scholarships, but there's not a lot of ways to retire. You got to save and invest your money. And believe me, your kids they would prefer taking some student loan debt over having mom and dad move in with them later on down the road, when they're 80 and they ran out of money. So that's another trade-off that I was talking about. Okay, so calculate the trade-offs.
Consider the importance of creating a plan, like we talked about. It's really important. So write down a plan when you're writing down these goals for how you want to save the money. Maybe your goals have been influenced by some of the math that we went over today. Write those things down, review it, look over it with your partner or whoever, and think about that, and open up a Roth IRA for sure.
And max it out.
I also think that the people want to see the puppy. we did talk about.
I'll go get Winnie.
And I'm going to enter the chat room and see if there's any questions that we've got a lot and we can answer for you guys. Yeah, Sunshine, you should like this.
Warren, you're so funny. So I know I opened a Roth IRA, right? And I'm really glad I did because I check it all the time. And I'm really good about not getting nervous when, you know, things fluctuate. But it has grown over the years, and I'm so glad I did it, that I opened it. I always kick myself I didn't do it sooner. But yeah. I don't know what it is. What even is it? I'm like, I just do what Warren tells me to do because I trust him, and he has the cutest puppy. But I still don't know what any of it is. How old is Winnie?
Winnie is like almost 4 months old.
I want to kiss her face.
Look at these paws. Look at the paws.
Oh, she's so cute. I'll trade you for my 8-month-old border collie. I don't like her
anymore. People want to know what a Roth IRA is. Could you explain?
Yeah. IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account. And the government wants people to save money for their retirement. Why would they want that? Well, because they don't want to be everybody's plan B. That's not really good. Half of retirees are only living off Social Security payments, and that's not a lot of money. So an IRA, the government dangled a carrot in front of a special type of account. And they said, if you put money into this account, when it grows, we're not going to tax it. We're not going to tax the growth. So that means it can snowball and compound way faster. Like, for example, let's think of taxes on growth is like a weight vest for running a marathon. And let's say that like Sunshine and I had 8-minute mile times for a marathon. We were running like training side by side. And then on race day, yeah, hypothetically, on race day, I put on a 30-pound weight vest, okay? And so at first, I bet you I could hang with Sunshine, like our 8-minute mile pace would still be intact. But then after like, I'm sure like mile 3 or mile 4, the wheels are gonna start to fall off for me. And I'm gonna start like walking and I'm gonna be dead. That's what taxes do to investment growth. They're like a weight vest. And so the government took the weight vest off of Roth IRAs, and they said this money can grow and compound like crazy. And then when you go to take money out of, remember that $2 million that was in there? Megan remembers, I see that in the chat. Then guess what? All that $2 million, you can pull that out with no taxes either, which is pretty sweet. So it's really, maybe it feels like a taxable $3 million. Tax-free $2 million is pretty awesome. Awesome. Okay. Somebody worked for the government for the last 7 years. Megan did, and maxed out that TSP. Awesome. So the TSP limits are greater. They're higher than the IRA. So the IRA is $6,000. TSP, you can put up to $19,500. So yeah, they're different. If you wanted to chat offline, Sunshine can make the connection. Samantha, no debt, but we need to get into our house. So would the best option to be to start a Roth, max out a Roth? So would the best option be to start a Roth, max the Roth out? Then what I need to draw for a down payment on the house, set aside and take the rest into savings? Yeah, I would say like, again, the down payment on a house is a trade-off. And it kind of depends on like how everything else looks, but you're never going to regret saving money into that Roth. And like, I think $6,000 is not going to make or break a home purchase for you. If it is, maybe you need to wait anyway. Like it's kind of a spicy environment to buy a house in right now. So, you know, I guess there's no penalty for delaying the house purchase. Remember what Warren Buffett said? He calls his house that he still lives in, by the way, like, I don't know, 70 years later, Buffett's folly, his big mistake. So like hold off if you need to, but don't hold off on saving that money. Okay.
But real estate, I think so. I definitely want to own my own home. Obviously, this has been a goal of mine for a long time. We've talked about it, and I haven't been able to do it yet because I live in Southern California, and and now especially is a really bad time, right? Like housing prices have gone up 35%. If I would have done it back then, it would have been great, but who knows now? But I think that the risk too, if you're not going to put the money into real estate, into a down payment in a house, is that the option isn't do that or spend it all. But what are some other saving options beside the Roth IRA or investing into real estate or home purchase where you're not going to sit and have your money grow at zero or just get eaten away by inflation? Like where can you put it so it's liquid so you can have access to it? Is there any such place?
Totally. Yeah. How about just a normal investment account? You could buy the exact same investments that you could in the Roth, and but it's not tied up. It's not married to retirement. It's totally usable for whatever you want, but it is growing. It's not sitting on the couch while you're going to work every day. It's working just as hard as those Facebook algorithms are working, which is what you want. So yeah, max out a Roth, then invest in the S&P 500. You said it, not me, but I don't hate that idea. I think that's a pretty sweet deal. Just know that human beings own these stocks, and human beings we have emotion, and that could mean that there's some volatility. Like for example, when COVID hit, everybody was freaking out, rightfully so. And they sold off their stocks because they were like, who knows how long this is going to last? I mean, there's so many questions. And the S&P 500 dropped 34% in 33 days. So,
I know you were my first phone call. Where do I?
Yeah.
Who do I buy?
Exactly. And so, anyway, just be prepared that for those shocks, they're going to happen. Like, I'm not saying there's going to be another global pandemic. I hope there isn't. But there's going to be something else that's going to make the stock market drop. But that 10% growth rate that I keep talking about, that's 10% through all that, the good, the bad, and the ugly, which I would call COVID ugly. It's still been 10% all the way through that. So if you can hang on for the ride, do it, and you will not regret it.
Yeah, I noticed someone in the chat said that investing is scary, which it totally is. But it's worth it, the trade-off down the road. And also that's what we mentioned, like working with a partner, working with an advisor, someone who, that's one of our big, especially last year, I think that was Warren spent most of his time fielding calls from clients to just be there for them and, comfort them and talk to them about like, hey, I know this is scary, but we've been here before. Maybe not, we haven't been here, but the stock market's been here before. It's been in this situation before. And so yeah, working with someone can help remove some of that fear.
Yeah, and not investing is even scarier. That's the trade-off. Yeah. Like we've been talking a lot about trade-offs today, but yeah, I mean that's an important thing to consider. Sunshine, how many cups of coffee do you usually have before a webinar?
At least 2 in the morning. Yeah. In the morning. Well, now that I'm not pregnant anymore, so I can have as many as I want.
Love it.
Any other questions, guys, or does that cover? If you're interested in
Megan's in Kansas. I just got off the phone with a couple in Kansas. They moved from San Diego to Kansas, and
what's it even in Kansas? Huh? I have no idea. I'm like, I know, I feel like moving there, my income, my what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? Cost of living, I guess, that my income would feel a lot bigger in Kansas, but I'm so scared of leaving California too. I love it here. I love our weather. I don't think I could give it up. It's so hard.
Trade-offs. There's the trade-offs again. Wow.
You're doing it, Warren, so I know it's not that bad of an idea.
That's true. It's true. I like to surf, and I couldn't trade that off for, I don't think, a lot. So, yeah.
You could surf in Costa Rica.
That's true. With all the money I'm saving. Didn't think about that.
Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, if anybody wants to get in touch with Warren, you're welcome to put your in the chat here if you want your email or something, so they can reach out to you directly. Or if anybody doesn't catch it, because when I close this, you won't have access to the chat anymore, I don't think. But feel free to grab that, Warren's email there. And Rachel is amazing at fielding emails and stuff and keeping Warren afloat. So
yeah,
her too.
Any more questions that you have?
Yeah, any questions you think of after the fact, feel free to reach out and I'll get you guys in touch with Warren if you need to, or whoever you have that you have been avoiding just getting your financial plan in order. I know the longer you wait to do it, the more you'll regret it later. So it gives me a lot of peace of mind to know that I have I know I'm not living up to my retirement plan goals right now. I'm not executing them perfectly, but having a plan that you're working on, even if you're not doing everything right, is better than not having one at all. So,
right.
Yeah. That's it. Anything else? Say bye to Winnie.
She's gone. She's gone, but I will pass the message along.
Okay. Well, I'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks,
all right.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.